What was the biggest bullet you dodged? My mother left me in one state and went back to my abusive stepfather. She tried to get me to drop out of my senior year at HS. Move back to their state and just get my GED. They wanted a live-in babysitter. Cook and maid. I was so lucky my grandparents let me move in with them and finish school. Edit. Thanks for all the love, guys. For those who have asked, I'm doing great. I've gone no contact with my mother and stepfather. They're still together, and it's been one of the most healthy decisions I've made. My husband and my kids are amazing and she's missing out big time. My grandparents are alive and well and are still involved in our lives. Was going to move to a different apartment complex last month. Got injured at work and lost hours. Therefore, couldn't come up with the deposit money in time. Last week Summer Shad was cooking meth and caught the building on fire. In 1992 I was 16. A bunch of us were about to leave a party and I called shotgun. But my friend Pat kind of wrestled me out of the spot and I wound up jumping in another car since the first car was now full. The other driver and I watched as our friend casketed into oncoming traffic. Pat was airlifted to the local trauma hospital where his dad told a huge group of us teenagers that Pat had succumbed to his injuries. Maybe that's not exactly bullet dodged. But well, about 15 years ago I dated a guy for less than a year. It was an awful, abusive relationship and I was happy to get out of it when I did. About 8-9 years ago, I saw him on the news. He strangled his girlfriend to death. He then dismembered her and lived with her body for a month or so before he was caught. Not changing jobs in early 2020. Would have been a short-lived promotion after early restructuring and layoffs. Didn't lend money to a friend because I was broke. Few months later he disappeared with several thousands he had stolen from my other friends. Not me. But I had a field service engineer working on one of my big robotic liquid handlers. He decided to bypass the safety pin that prevents the heads from moving while the cover is open while he had a diagnostic program queued up on the computer. What he didn't know was that the instant he reinserted the safety pin the machine would execute the queued instructions and start moving. And he had a hand inside it right in the danger zone. I grabbed his shoulder and yanked his hand out an instant before it was crushed. He stopped ignoring me when I told him to stop bypassing safety lockouts to save a few minutes. When my great aunt passed away I was helping to clean out her house. I'm just dragging everything out of the basement and suddenly my dad is like, "Whoa. Put that down gently and let's move away from here." So I put the weird metal tube type thing I'm carrying down and get out of there. Turns out it's a mortar shell from when my aunt worked in a munitions factory during WWII. Bomb squad came and took it away. I had a cardiac arrest about 4 years ago. Dropped dead-ish in the middle of my shift. Found out after I woke up about a week later that the manager who saw me fall was a former lifeguard and knew proper CPR. An ambulance happened to be passing about 2 blocks away. Probably the best cardio unit in my state was a 10-minute ambulance ride from where it all happened. Walked out of the hospital about 2 weeks later. Full recovery. My dad was going through severe depression 10 years ago and my life was equally poopty for a whole multitude of reasons. And it was rubbing off on me. I spent what felt like half an hour crying on the floor and working up the nerve to pull the trigger. Then when I finally did, the safety was on. I sold my gun the next morning. Wish my dad was able to say the same 3 years later. R.I.P. I was walking down the street in downtown Chicago and I heard a loud bang followed by a woman screaming. Somebody dropped a full 2-liter bottle of soda from the 13th floor and it just missed me. It was essentially a giant bullet at that height and speed. The woman screaming was about 5 feet behind me. She was the second closest to being hit. I'm pretty sure that bottle would have killed me if it hit me. Edit. Thanks for the awards. I immediately reported this to a nearby police officer and he said they were trying to find the guy who was trying to hit people from the 13th floor earlier that day. That's where I got the 13th floor. For those of you who say there's no such thing as a 13th floor in America. Fine. 14th floor. But on the same height as where the 13th floor would be. For non-Americans. 13 is unlucky, so some buildings will call their 13th floor the 14th floor. A literal police car. The police were chasing someone and I was crossing the road and my dumbass was walking slowly and the police car nearly grazed me. Look both ways and take off your headphones when you cross the road, kids. At 17, I met and married a sweet little North Carolina daddy's girl. Had I not, I would have still been hanging with my friends that just discovered heroin. Of the 3 friends, 2 are dead and 1 did 10 years in prison. When I was in middle school I wanted to buy a fedora. But none could fit my head. 7. 92 Mauser rifle bullet. When I was 15ish I was very depressed and got very drunk. Found my great grandfather's WWI captured German rifle. Found some bullets from that time. Loaded it. And put the rifle in my mouth and pulled the trigger. Thankfully the bullet was not loaded properly, was a dud for being 90 years old at the time. And did not fire. A friend had lost his job under suspicious circumstances. A few weeks later he asked me to take him to the bank. As I got near to pick him up I caught a train. He called to say never mind, he would get someone else. A few days later a friend sent out a message to a large number of our friends. This guy lost his job and was running a check cashing con. Can you cash this check for me? I'll pay you $50 if you do. The check is $500. He has no backing funds. You eat the whole amount. He did this to several friends in a few days to amass a few grand and was about to skip town when the cops got him. Missed a train by seconds. Got on the one after. The one I missed hit someone. Getting chased by someone with a knife across my apartment. I closed my door at the right moment so that person ended up stabbing my wooden door instead. The mark was there until I left the apartment a few years later as a constant reminder of what could have been. Literally. I was walking back to our barracks in Afghanistan talking with my peers and my staff sergeant. We get to one part, my staff sergeant grabbed my collar and pulled me back. Right there was a unexploded 40mm grenade projectile from a launcher sitting where my foot was about to land. Big yikes. Almost proposed to a girl who had been cheating on me with a pile of poop that called himself my best friend. This was years ago. And I'm getting married at the end of the month to the love of my life. Life has a way of working itself out. Went to kill myself by putting a plastic bag over my head and tying it off. Figured it would be less messy to be found. My cat started going crazy on the other side of the door when I started to get lightheaded and feel sort of nauseous. I thought, oh right. You need your dinner and no one else will feed you, and I untied the bag to feed the cat. After the fact I realized my cat literally saved me from one of my lowest points. God, I miss that cat. Still can't believe I came that close. After I had a stroke. I was in a coma and it didn't look like I'd wake up. The DRS asked my wife if they should let me go. I only exist because she said no. I didn't dodge a bullet so much as my wife blocked it for me. I interviewed for a job that I wanted desperately in August 2019. After the initial phone interview, I went in for an in-person interview at 4 PM on a Wednesday. I had a rejection in my inbox by 8 PM and was completely gutted. Then 2020 happened. And they laid off 60% of their staff and will probably go under. I'm thankful for that rejection every day. My high school sweetheart and fiance was my bullet. He ghosted me out of nowhere. No explanation. Just gone. So needless to say, no wedding. I sent the ring back to his mom cause I didn't want it and was pissed. I go on to live a great life. Find a wonderful guy and we have been happily married for 21 years. 25 years later I find out that my old flame had been arrested for underage solicitation, sexting underage girls, possession of child porn, and many charges of hanky-panky with minors. Apparently Mr. Big Man in his community was arrested in a sting operation after this 12-year-old girl's parents found a whole series of explicit texts and had found that he set up a romantic hotel room get-together for them. Police pretended to be her and he was caught in the parking lot of the hotel. Even better, he was married to the same chick he was apparently seeing while we were together, and had a couple of kids, all around the same age of his victims. Yeah. Before finding all this out, I regretted for a long time that we didn't work. After finding out this had been going on for at least 20 years, I was rather glad I got ghosted. Never been so glad to dodge a bullet. So about 20 something years ago, I was on my way to an interview through a suburb of Washington DC. That particular road has you driving at a not so slow speed, with no shoulders and sidewalks with many pedestrians. A woman standing on the sidewalk stepped backwards into the roadway just as I was approaching, slammed on the brakes, honked, and she turned slightly. I stop and get out and she's rolling around clutching her foot, wailing about her foot getting rolled over. My heart is hammering. I have no idea how much trouble I'm in, and my brain is ticking away the time to the interview. Pedestrians kept coming up to her to tell her that they saw me run over her foot. Duh. Of course you did. After a few minutes of this, the woman stood up, said Merry Christmas, it was definitely nowhere near Christmas, and walked away through the people standing there. I took my dodge bullet with much appreciation. But a couple of inches and my life could have changed for the worse in so many ways. Ex said we can have unprotected hanky-panky after getting some unfortunate news from her gynecologist. Something felt off. Few years later she had twins with some guy. Freshman year of college I had a calc class. It was material I had learned before, but for various reasons they didn't give me transfer credit. So I skipped class quite frequently, though I usually slept in. One morning I find myself awake at 8:30 and not really feeling like sleep. Might as well check in on the class and see what's going on. It was the midterm exam. I can answer this in a literal way. When I was a child, I was playing video games with my little brother. Well, he found our dad's gun and fired it. No one was hurt, but it scared the poop out of me. Abusive boyfriend dumped me. If he hadn't I most likely wouldn't have left and even would have married him. As a kid, after running errands in town with my mom, I was climbing into the backseat of our family station wagon. A semi-truck hit a power line pole down the street, causing the still live wire to fall, bounce off the roof of the car and hang across the open door just a foot or two above my legs. Raised Catholic, I wondered for a while after if I had actually died that day and that the rest of what I thought was my life was my purgatory. This chick wanting to hook up with me so quickly, I kept putting it off. Finally, after a month, she had to admit she was pregnant with someone else's kid. Tried to trap me. Studying video game development in college. Reading about the standard of living for those people and the horrific abusive practices in the industry made me realize I was totally right to just go with electrical engineering. Broke up with an abuser. He told me he wanted to marry me all the time, but he never asked. And he never produced a ring. Thank God. He did get married and so did I. But I still worry about his wife even though I have no real connection to her. When I was 15, I'm 16 now, I was being manipulated and lied to by a 20-year-old man for sex. I brought the topic on Reddit so people could give me their opinion, and a random Redditor helped me snap out of it. A few weeks ago I talked to the 20-year-old and I then completely understood that he just saw me as a walking hole to stick his PP in. Edit, I did not sleep with him. I snapped out of it before he got the chance. A rocket fell about 50 meters from me. The ceiling started to crumble a bit. But I was okay. Except a mild PTSD. My ex. She turned out to be crazy. Literally. Not the kind of crazy label angry bitchy women get. But actually crazy. She ended up in a state mental hospital for at the very least 1 year mandatorily. But while we were together, she threatened to kill herself if I left. Multiple times. She broke into my apartment and forced me to let her stay the night and cuddle her. Wouldn't let me sleep. Fun fact. She cheated on me and gave me gonorrhea. I'm stupid for not leaving her beforehand and just reporting her to the police, but that was the final straw. The bullet I dodged. I didn't get her pregnant. Thank God.
Hi there. Look, if you enjoyed the video, well, why not go ahead and hit that like and subscribe to Reddit Stories. In fact, if you want to see even more responses to this thread, well then, take a look. There's the link in the description below. And remember, show some love to those authors while you're there. And I look forward to seeing you next time.